Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here this busy Tuesday morning, the 11th day of February. 2/11, everybody. It's 2/11. I don't know. It just sounds like it's something urgent and important. I have no idea. 8:05, we'll talk to Matt Schlapp of CPAC, and also 8:35, Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Senate confirmation hearings continue. We'll have some votes on Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., who look like they're going to make it. They're going to get through. And I maintain the same position that I have at the beginning. Some of these cabinet selections may not be who I would have picked, but I also didn't win the election. I'm not the president.
Right.
And I think, barring some extraordinary objection about a person's character or about their anything, honestly. Something extraordinary, though.
Yeah.
The president deserves the cabinet that he wants. That comes with the office, right?
Right.
But I have to say, I have some grave reservations over his choice for Secretary of Labor. Let's bring in Mark Mix, president of National Right to Work, an organization that I believe you guys, for the most part, support many of the president's agenda and many of the president's picks. So where do you guys stand on this cabinet choice?
Yeah, Larry, good morning, Julie. This one is interesting. She actually is a Republican, Larry. She was one of three.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. No, she was one of three Republicans.
Well, she votes like a Democrat sometimes.
There you go. That's right. She was one of three Republicans to co-sponsor the so-called PRO Act. I think we've talked about that before. This is a bill that would dramatically expand union official power. And one of the sole purposes of the PRO Act, there's lots of things in there, but the first thing it does, it repeals all the right to work laws around the country. So that's got our attention, Julie. That's got our attention, Larry.
Yeah.
Because, she believes the federal government should basically mandate that everyone pay union dues or fees in order to get or keep a job. We oppose that. She supports it. And hopefully tomorrow, when she's up at the Senate Health Committee, there will be senators that will ask that question. Obviously, Larry, your point's well taken. The president won the election. He can nominate who he wants. This nomination comes from a different environment. In fact, it's Sean O'Brien, the Teamster Union president, takes credit for this nomination. So we have some problems with it. We think she should be grilled. She probably is going to make it. I don't think there's any question about that. But we do have to raise concerns when a position like this comes up.
This is interesting because, frankly, the vice president has made some sort of comments that he's in favor of the PRO Act. I mean, he said just last year that he thought it was a tragedy that there's declining union membership. Is this sort of more another example of the Trump administration's weakness on this issue? What do you sort of make of this? I mean, I think with some of the other nominees that we're worried about, for instance, like some people are worried about RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, it's clear that they're very loyal to Trump and they'll do, they want to advance his agenda. What do you think about this? Is this just the Trump administration really being more pro-union and less for worker rights?
Well, I think what they want to be is they want to be more pro-worker, and that's the important. There's a big distinction between union officials and rank-and-file workers across the country. I mean, look at Open Secrets made a report about the sector totals by organizations that contributed to the presidential campaigns. Labor unions, actually direct contributions from unions or outside groups that were given union money, gave $59.685 million to Kamala Harris. They gave $284,000 to Donald Trump. $284,000 to Donald Trump. So the union officials are on one side, the rank and file workers are on the other. And so somehow the Republicans believe the way we get to the hearts and minds of working Americans is to talk to Sean O'Brien and to talk to Sean Fain, the president of the United Auto Workers Union. That's absolutely the wrong message. The message is be for a secure border, be for reducing crime, be for reducing the size of government, for reducing taxes. That attracts all kinds of, quote, working class people. They don't have to have a union card in their wallet, but they're for those policies. I would suggest union officials are against all those policies. We're against Donald Trump, but yet The secret now, apparently, in Washington, D.C., and you two have seen this before, it's not surprising, is to go to the officials of the labor unions and say, we'll take care of you, knowing that it's not taking care of working Americans.
Yeah, and listen, I understand the instinct there. It's like, oh, you want to make sure you secure the union vote, so you talk to the leader. You know, you have one meeting with the president of the union, and the president of the union promises, I'll bring the votes. Well, that's what got the Democrats in the mess that they've been in, where the actual rank and file have gone in the other direction. Most rank and file union members, I would think, are not terribly exercised over, you know, people working as an independent contractor, if they're, you know, a writer or a babysitter or a teacher or an Uber driver or what have you. It's very special interests who don't like those things. It's the PRO Act that is the biggest issue here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you're right, Larry, about the independent contractors. The PRO Act has the redefinition of the independent contractors to employees. And the reason why that's in there is because you can't unionize independent contractors, but you can unionize employees. So she is a co-sponsor of that. And at the Department of Labor, she's going to be in charge of that definition of who's an independent contractor and who's an employee. So there's a really aggressive campaign by independent contractors. And this is a very big part of kind of the people's economy, if you will. And, you know, she wanted to unionize all state government employees by federal decree. She co-sponsored a bill that said the United States government will mandate unionization on states. She wanted to unionize TSA employees. Those aren't things that are good for individuals.
No, that should
They're
be
good for union officials. Exactly.
So, Mark,
that's where we are.
To Julie's question, is this one of those cases where, Tulsi and RFK might have certain ideas that are antithetical, but they're not going to focus on that. They're just going to focus on the stuff that is going to maintain Trump's agenda, and the other stuff you don't have to worry about, like with RFK abortion and with Tulsi Gabbard, centralized government health care. It seems harder to separate the Secretary of Labor from an issue like this. Has she said, sure, I supported the PRO Act, but that's not going to be my focus as Labor Secretary?
Yeah. Well, I think she has said that. The White House has come out with kind of a statement along those lines, Larry. But, you know, you're great at marketing and great at framing. And so the framing right now is, she'll not pay attention. This won't be her focus. But she did say that she now thinks the PRO Act is unworkable. She used that word. But then again, how many times in Washington, D.C. do we see politicians say one thing while they're on the campaign trail, and then once they get elected, and this is what, she would be confirmed as Secretary of Labor, she's now in charge of a $70 billion operation with $14 billion in discretionary income. She's in charge of adjudicating the definition of employees. She's in charge of apprenticeship programs. She's in charge of the Office of Labor Management Standards, which is supposed to investigate unions for wrongdoing. I mean, these are things that are important, and you don't have to be pro-forced unionism to be a pro-worker, and hopefully the Department of Labor is run by someone that focuses on workplace rights. Only 5.9% of the private sector workforce is unionized today. So the idea of this constituency is shrinking and shrinking, and that's not workers' fault or government's fault. That's the union officials' fault for being out here for $59 million for Kamala Harris and $284,000 for Donald Trump. It's their fault. They played partisan politics. Yep.
It's the Labor Department. It's not the Union Department, and that's what we need to keep focusing on and recognizing. We don't celebrate Union Day in September. We celebrate Labor Day, but the left would like to make it otherwise, but it's not, and will continue to be pro-worker, pro-employee, pro-citizen who works for a living. But we're not pro-Marxist. Thank you, Mark Mix. We are pro-Mark Mix, though. Not Karl Marx, but Mark Mix. We like Mark Mix.
Good.
Thank you, sir. National
Thank you both.
Right to Work Committee. It is 7:15, WMAL Traffic and Weather.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.